Copenhagen has to be one of the coolest cities in the entire world, but there are some things I wish I'd known before visiting. I just got back, so I got a lot to share with you. First thing to note is that Copenhagen is really expensive. I knew it was expensive going in. I didn't realize just how expensive, so be prepared for that. That way you're not caught off guard. Also keep in mind that this is a completely cashless place. I didn't see anybody use cash. I never needed it once, so leave that at home. Just get ready to use your cards. But let's talk about some of the biggest culture things of like, how can you actually save money and how do people partake in life? The most important thing to note is public transit is like just exceptional here, one of the top 5 in the world, the best that I've ever seen. So you're first gonna interact with this when you're coming from the airport. Really easy to get from the airport. There's trains and metros. Right once you get out of like baggage claim and come out into the main thing of the airport, you will see this big area. You go and you buy your ticket right there. It couldn't be any easier. It's gonna take you right downtown. Now, once you're actually downtown, you're definitely going to want to get some sort of metro pass. I ended up doing the 24 or 48 hour pass. That's just what worked well for me, but there are some mistakes that I made. So bear with me here, we're gonna explain some important things. First thing that I screwed up day one is you go to the metro stop and you're like, all right, I'm gonna navigate this new system. You go down the escalator and you're like, wait, am I in a mall? Where the heck am I? This is way too nice to be a metro station. Nope, that's just how nice they are here in Copenhagen. So you are in the right place, but make sure that along the walls, that's where you buy your ticket. I made the mistake of just getting on the train thinking that maybe I buy it there because I didn't see anything. There is no place to actually scan in. It's not how it works in Copenhagen. Instead, you buy a ticket, it'll look something like this. You just hang on to this. Now, there will be people who come around and check tickets sometimes. There is a hefty fine if you get caught without a ticket. So make sure that you buy a pass, put it in your wallet, have it safe, and make sure that it's ready if somebody comes and checks. Definitely do yourself a favor at some point during your trip, go to the very first cart. Because there's no driver, you get to act like the driver, and they put this cute little sticker where like kids kind of play around and act like they're controlling the train. But even for adults, it's pretty fun to just watch out the window and say, wow, we're going pretty quick, and actually see the public transit system that they have built. It is very impressive. Anyways, another thing around transportation, and this is really a tip for not annoying the locals because tourists do this all the time. And the first one is thinking that Copenhagen is your opportunity to just ride bikes and explore and have fun. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but recognize that the bike lanes here, that is a form of public transit for the locals. They're using it to get from point A to point B. So if you're a tourist who has never ridden a bike before, maybe consider not renting a bike, or if you do, just make sure that you understand the bike rules. Understand when you can turn right, which you can't do on red. Make sure you understand the hand signals because it can get pretty dangerous when you get tourists on a bike who don't really know what they're doing, and locals, they're used to it. They're flying through every day, and yeah, it's just a pain point for them. So be cognizant of that. Another thing that you're going to want to be cognizant of, which I'm probably not doing in this video, is lower the tone of voice a little bit. Things are quiet, things are peaceful here, and it's really easy to identify the tourists being really loud around their peaceful little canals and beautiful areas, so respect the culture and don't be that annoying tourist. Another thing that is really important culturally that I just wish I knew how cool Copenhagen was. And what I mean by that is, I did not feel like I was dressed appropriately. I wish I would have brought my cooler clothes. These people just know fashion, which I did not expect. I wasn't dressed poorly, but these people take it to another level. So if you're worried about fitting in, maybe bring some of those fancier, trendier clothes where you're trying to be a bit more expressive, not the plain black t-shirt that I'm always wearing, or green one. This is my nicer stuff, I guess. I probably just need to accept that I'm not cool enough to fit in Copenhagen. They're just on another level. The next really important thing to note is that food quality is really high in Copenhagen, like exceptional dining options pretty much across the board. That is where you can expect things to get pretty pricey, but a big recommendation here is make sure to make reservations. Most of the places, even at that mid-tier level, did require reservations, especially on the weekend. So let's jump into some food recommendations because there are so many good ones. The first spot that I absolutely loved was a place called the 1612, and kind of like a brunch restaurant, but just incredible quality in terms of the ingredients they were using, beautiful presentation, and just really tasty. Highly recommend them. Now, if you've only got a couple days to visit and you want to sample a bunch of the local dishes, there is this kind of market slash food hall that is really popular. It is kind of in that central touristy area, and there will be tourists. So it is a great spot to try a couple of different things. Do note that the prices are going to be a little bit higher. It's not the best quality, but it will give you that opportunity to sample around. But what about all of that great coffee and pastries that you see all over social media? Well, I've got some suggestions here. For bakeries, there is one, and really in my opinion, only one choice, and that is Juno the Bakery. This is a little bit further out. This isn't a pretty local area of town, but guys, it is well worth the visit. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this was the best pastry that I've had anywhere around the world. And if you're new here, I move to a new country every single month. Been doing that for 3 years, so I don't say that lightly. This place is incredible. Highly recommend. There's always going to be a line. Be prepared to wait. It was well worth it. Everything we could have hoped for and more. So that's the only bakery that I'm going to recommend here. In terms of coffee, you've got some more options. The first one is this place called Prologue Coffee. This is down in the meatpacking district, and it's a really trendy spot. Great coffee. One of the little pro tips here, and I can't confirm this, so locals help me out if this is true. I think that they are actually serving the baked goods from Juno the Bakery. So if you don't want to venture all the way up to Juno, you might have the opportunity at having some of the things at Prologue Coffee. I could be wrong, but I have a suspicion that they are doing that. But another place that I highly recommend is called Orsa. And this is a cafe. It is in a really trendy area of town, and the folks who go there, well, they are trendy themselves. This place is focused on music and specialty coffee, really cool vibes. They do have a little bit of outdoor seating that kind of spills onto the street. Just a really popular place to be and a great cup of coffee. Definitely recommend them. And one of my other personal favorites was this place called Hip Hop. This one kind of feels like a hole in the wall, but it's run by two guys who left Prologue to create their own place in hip hop. And I mean, great cup of coffee, nothing to complain about. If you're looking for a fancy night out, there's a place called Ruby that has exceptional cocktails. They're currently, I think, top 100 in the world in terms of bars. Really cool atmosphere, wonderful drinks, and we had a great experience there. And if you can't get into Ruby, there's another spot called The Bird. Not quite as good, but still a really cool environment to drink in. Definitely would recommend reservations at both, and both really great spots if you're looking for that cocktail type of evening. Now let's talk about some of the places that are completely free that are really worthwhile to walk around at, and two places that are a little bit controversial. We'll get there, but the first spot is, I'm just gonna circle it on this map here. I think most tourists will really enjoy just setting aside some time to wander in this area. There's just a lot of different type of architecture. You're gonna be up on the water, really unique houseboats. It's just a very interesting place to be, so definitely give yourself some time to do that. Another spot that you might have heard of is Freetown, Christiania. It's a really unique part of town. Used to be army barracks, and there have been a lot of people who have lived in it since, and there's some interesting rules around that area. It kind of operates separately, but it is definitely still a part of Copenhagen. Just a really unique part of the culture and the history to learn about, a lot of art, so definitely go and appreciate that and take in what it has to offer. If you want to be walking by the water, there's a spot near the planetarium that just offers a great viewpoint. A lot of people will be picnicking around there. You can swim in that water is just beautiful, and you can walk just straight across town along that body of water. So really pretty area to be in. If you want, the Botanical Garden Park is beautiful, and I think a lot of people think that you need to be paying for it. It is not. The park area itself is completely free and very worthwhile. You also have the castle. The castle part you do have to pay for, but the King's Gardens are completely free and also stunning. So another spot that I think a lot of tourists end up missing is the Assistance Cemetery. And I know it probably sounds weird putting a cemetery on the list, but this one really is very beautiful and a very peaceful place to walk through. So I would recommend there. Just be respectful, of course. And probably my favorite completely free thing to do is the Garden of the Royal Library. It's just a stunning little garden, great place to sit and relax for a little bit, so definitely recommend checking them out. But let's talk about two spots that are a little bit controversial. The first is Nyhavn, and this is a place that all the tourists, you're definitely gonna want to see. And the reason that it's controversial is because it is really more of a tourist attraction. Most locals aren't hanging out in this area, yet it's the most picturesque part of Copenhagen. So it's controversial in the sense that, yes, you definitely want to go to it, but it's not representative of all of Copenhagen, and most of the restaurants and shops around there, they're going to be priced trying to take advantage of tourists. So just keep in mind, you don't need to whip out the wallet anywhere near that little area. You're just not going to get the best bang for your buck, so keep that in mind. And the other kind of controversial controversial place is the Little Mermaid statue. So I think this one gets a little bit of a bad rap for a couple of reasons. One, it's a little bit further out than where most tourists end up venturing off to. And two, the statue is rather small, and that's really all there is out there. So if you get lucky and have a nice weather day, I think it's a great thing to go do, especially if you just want to see a different area of Copenhagen, or if you have little ones who really want to see that statue. But is it that place that you have to go and see on your trip? Probably not, especially if you only have a couple of days and want to focus on some of the other things, but you make the call there. But let's talk about where you should actually stay, which area of town is going to suit you best depending on the sort of trip you're looking for. So the first area that you might consider is Østerbro. And this is a beautiful area of town. It's very residential, a little bit upscale, and a bit further out than some of these other spots. This is probably best if you're there for a longer period of time, maybe if you have families. Otherwise, if you're only there for a couple of days, you're probably going to want to be a little bit more centered to the action. Next place that you might want to consider is Nørrebro. Nørrebro feels a little bit younger. It definitely has like an edge and just like cultural flair to it. A lot of good cuisine over there, kind of like the melting pot area of the city. Definitely a spot to check out and some great things, but a little bit more affordable than that first spot. Now, if you're looking for more of that nightlife type of scene, Vesterbro might be your best option. It is a place that has a little bit more grit than other areas of town. I do hear that that area of town has changed quite a bit over the years, but it is definitely an area where there's a lot of young people, definitely some nightlife, some great dining options, and it does put you in pretty good proximity. And I was actually over there and I did enjoy my time. But if you're not wanting quite as much grit, maybe if you're traveling with families, maybe right to the north of that you have Frederiksberg, which kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You have easy access to that nightlife, but Frederiksberg seems a little bit more upscale, a bit more residential, probably a little bit of a safer feeling as well for families, so keep that in mind. Now, if you're looking for that really charming feel, Christianshavn is just wonderful, beautiful little area, really safe, and it's really central. The downside here is it's extremely expensive. Very scenic, but you do have to have the money to pony up to stay there. Well out of my price range, but if it's within yours, it's probably going to be a great place to stay, but don't feel like you have to be there because again, the metro is wonderful. The next place that you might consider staying is what I'm just going to call the city center, and it's everything circled right here. There's nothing wrong with this place. It's going to give you great access to most of the things that tourists are looking for. But recognize that by staying here, you're putting yourself where most of the tourists are, which means higher prices, things that are a little bit more of that tourist trap. You're not going to get as much of that local feel. So if you're looking for that local experience, this probably isn't the area, even though you will probably spend some time here, especially as a first-time tourist. But my biggest tip on where to stay is try to put yourself wherever you can afford, but closest to the M3 line. The M3 is the metro line, it's red on the map, and it's the only line that does just a full loop, and it'll get you just about anywhere in the city in about 15 minutes. So my priority would be getting as close to one of those metro stops as you can, because it's just gonna give you tremendous access to everything else, and then you don't need to worry about spending up for accommodation closer to the center of the city. So I hope that makes sense, but if you want just kind of my unfiltered thoughts on Copenhagen and some of the cultural things that I identified, I did make a whole video. You can watch that right here. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I hope this was helpful, and we'll catch you guys next time.